Texas football suffers an upset against the TCU Horned Frogs. Texas volleyball remains at the top of their game, and we take you inside the NBC Premier League Fan Fest. All this and more coming up on
What's the
College
crack?
Press
This is the
Box.
Celtic Warrior, Seamus, and you're watching the College Press Box. Fella.
Good evening and welcome to College Press Box. Thank you for joining us on your Monday evening. I'm your host, Jaxie Pidgeon, joined alongside Jay Murphy. We have a packed show for you tonight. Let's start out with this past Saturday's football matchup between Texas and TCU.
The Longhorns travel to Fort Worth to face off against the TCU Horned Frogs. Let's head down to Armin G. Carter Stadium for the highlights. First quarter, Longhorns kicker Cameron Dicker kicks a 20-yard field goal, ruled fair. Texas takes the lead 3-0. TCU's kicker Jonathan Song kicks a 32-yard field goal, tying the game. TCU 3, Texas 3. Second quarter, TCU's quarterback Max Duggan passes complete to Pro Wells for a 20-yard touchdown, with the TCU leading the game by 7 points. Pro Wells in the game only making 24 yards. Next, we see Texas quarterback Sam Ehlinger pass Devin Duvernay is complete, and he runs it in for a 47-yard touchdown, tying the score. Later, we'll see the TCU offense trying to escape their own 3 yards after finding any wide receivers and almost getting sacked. Max Duggan takes off, running 11 yards to the TCU 14-yard line. TCU first down. For our final play from the second quarter, we have Texas quarterback Sam Ehlinger throwing a complete pass to Keontae Ingram for a 17-yard touchdown. To begin the third quarter, we see Texas quarterback Ehlinger throw a pass intended for Jake Smith. However, it's picked off by TCU's Ardarius Washington, making the total amount of interceptions for the game 4 quarters. Fourth quarter, Texas Rashawn Johnson runs a 2-yard touchdown, followed by TCU's Max Duggan running it in for an 11-yard touchdown. Duggan rushes 17 yards with 273 passing yards, 2 yards rushing. For the final moments of the game, we will see Sam Ehlinger throwing a forced pass, and it's intercepted, sealing the win for TCU. Longhorns are short 10 points to secure a win against the TCU Horned Frogs, losing 37-27 in the final moments of the fourth quarter. Our very own John Kelly was at the game and has more from Fort Worth.
That was a sound heard far too often Saturday afternoon when unranked TCU picked off number 15 Texas 37-27. The Longhorn defense struggled, giving up 435 yards. Coach Tom Herman gave his thoughts on how the defense was performing.
We're not good, and we need to be better. I think the off week will help. We've got to do a better job as coaches. The guys that are out there, we got to get them ready to play. We got to make plays and put them in position to do so.
With this being Texas's third loss, Tom Herman gave his thoughts on how the Longhorns need to improve over the bye week.
We've got an open date to get back to the basics, get back to fundamentals, find out what we can do and who we're going to be doing it with, and the only thing to do is improve.
Coach Herman then elaborated on how he feels about Sam Ehlinger and how he thought Sam handled the 4 interceptions.
That guy, it doesn't matter, to him. He's going to go out and play his game, and he was off a little bit, certainly, but he's the epitome of what Malcolm talked about. When you're in a rut, when you're down, you're going to fight, scratch, and claw, and he brought us within 3 points with 5.5 minutes or whatever it was to go, and we couldn't get off the field.
After the hard loss, seniors Zach Shackelford and Devin Duvernay gave their advice to the younger players on how to move on from this game.
We just can't drift apart. We got to pull together. It's an overriding theme in all team sports. You can't do it if you don't have a team behind you. So we just got to do a good job pulling together.
Just keep working. That's all we can do. Just seek to win. Get ready for Kansas State.
The Longhorns have an open date this Saturday and will be back in DKR November 9th versus Kansas State.
From Amon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, I'm John Kelly, TSTV Sports.
Joining us in the studio is football analyst Clark Dalton. After taking a look at Texas' performance, we see that Texas all around struggled to progressively pose a threat to TCU's Horned Frogs. What were the main reasons for the loss against TCU?
Well, Jay, the first reason was freshman quarterback Max Duggan. This was kind of his coming out game. He threw for 273 yards against the Longhorns. And also, one thing that kind of surprised the Longhorns with Duggan was his mobility. It permitted some creativity in the TCU offense. And another thing that allowed TCU to excel was they stayed in front of people on the offensive and defensive side of the balls. The receivers had those little quick moves at the line of scrimmage that allowed them to race deep. And the defensive backs stayed in front of the receivers, which limited Sam's passing options.
Absolutely. Clark, could not disagree at all. Kansas throughout the night just seemed more prepared and better than Texas seemed to be. However, Clark, I would like to ask, after looking at this past game and previous games against the Kansas Jayhawks and the Oklahoma Sooners, what are some few takeaways from the impact of coaching and play calling on the recent results on the team?
Jay, it's a game of Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. The system is only as good as the players that are in it. Let's look at some of the injuries that Texas has had. Caden Stearns, DeMarvion Overshawn, B.J. Foster. Colin Johnson is not 100% either. All key players. And the system is built around those pieces. It was working at the beginning of the year, but then you play tough teams like LSU and Oklahoma early, and that's just a cost that comes with it when you get in that big physical style of play. And that's when you don't have those pieces later in the season, the system just doesn't operate the same or as smoothly.
True, definitely, Clark. Looking into the next few weeks, going against Kansas State, Iowa State, and Tech, there is going to need to be a change and improvement in some of the things that Texas is doing to get out of this slump. On that note, with the loss against TCU, Texas is out of the top 25. What do you think?
Jay, these are the times that try men's souls. And that was written by Thomas Paine during American Crisis when it appeared that the American Revolution had been lost. And the meaning of that quote is, you don't find out who you are when things are going right. You find out who you are when the situation is messy and when you get knocked down. That's just part of life. Sometimes you have to get back up and keep moving forward. And it definitely applies to Texas football right now because it's a roller coaster of highs and lows that can range from winning a national championship to the loss you witnessed that weekend. Does that mean you should stop being a fan of sport? Absolutely not, because it's that losing that makes you appreciate winning just a little bit more. So Texas fans, keep coming out and having fun at DKR. To the Texas football team, you have 4 games left. So try to give it 100% full throttle because an opportunity may lay ahead and you need to seize it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Clark, for joining us and giving us your opinion over the game this past Saturday. When we return, we will hear from our volleyball analysis, Bailey Ward, and my co-host, Jaxie Pidgeon, discussing the recent matchup between Texas and the Baylor Bears in volleyball. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to College Press Box. This past Wednesday, Texas volleyball played against the #1 and undefeated Baylor Bears. I was at Gregory Gym to give you more on this game. On Wednesday night, the 4th-ranked Texas Longhorns took on the #1 and undefeated Baylor Bears at home. Before this game, Baylor was the only undefeated team left in D1 college volleyball.
I think we always just try to come out and be the hunter, not the hunted. So no matter if we're ranked low or ranked higher, we're gonna come at you no matter what.
Kay said before the match yesterday, she was like, we need to defend our house, and we're not gonna let them come in here and disrespect us. Like recently, we've been talking a lot about like at the end of the day, it's what we're doing on our side of the net that's gonna win games. So I think it was just great to see everything that we've been working on so hard to like actually pay off in a game situation.
Yeah, I think what really changed the match tonight was our serving. And we spent a lot of time in the spring. We were talking about first contact a lot and spent a lot of time on it. Tonight, you know, we hit all cylinders with that and got them out of system a ton and just put so much pressure on them. As a result, we did a nice job.
The Texas Longhorns swept the #1 Baylor Bears at home in a sellout fashion. A notable player was Breon Butler, who dominated defensively, having 8 blocks and 12 kills for the night.
You know, I think there's a lot of things that we've been working on. We've been spending a lot of time on our defense and our blocking, and you can start seeing that it's starting to come through a little bit. We got them early, and then they started making some forced hitting errors, and we did a nice job.
Sophomore middle blocker Breon Butler had been out for the first month of the season due to a leg injury. She showed up for this game leading the team in kills, but she mentioned that she still doesn't think she is back to her full potential.
As of right now, I wouldn't say I'm back to 100%, still really limited, mostly in practice, but I think I'm slowly being able to get to that point.
The bleachers were packed as this game had been completely sold out for 2 weeks prior to the game. There were 4,215 people present for this top 5 matchup.
When there's a big game, our crowd gets a little bit more excited. When they expect us to win, it's not a big name or a big ranking, then they're a little bit more quiet. So it's an educational process. I think it keeps getting better every year, but I'm pleased with it.
For our fans, everybody that shows up for us, like every single game, like to be able to do this for them too and for each other was pretty awesome.
This Texas team upset Baylor, giving them their first loss of the season. Texas remains undefeated in Big 12 play and has moved up to number 1 in the Big 12 volleyball standings. From Gregory Gym in Austin, Texas, I'm Jaxie Pidgeon, TSTV Sports. Joining us in the studio is volleyball analyst Bailey Wald. Welcome back. Now, Bailey, this past week, the Longhorns swept the undefeated Baylor Bears at home, moving them to number 1 in Big 12 rankings. How significant do you think this win is for this team?
Well, this is a huge win for this team for 2 different reasons. First, it puts Texas in sole possession of the first place in the Big 12 and number 1 overall in the country. Baylor came into the match undefeated, yet Texas was by far the better team from start to finish. I mean, we saw that with the sweep 3-0. And the win over Baylor and over Kansas on Saturday, Texas has now swept their last 7 opponents. Their last lost set was over a month ago, September 25th, against Iowa State. So with that puts Texas with so much momentum for their only 8 games that they have left in the regular season. I mean, they really smoked Baylor, and it's just really going to push them forward.
Right, as you said, they swept Baylor, and then they went to Lawrence, Kansas, and swept the Jayhawks as well. What is it, Bailey, that makes this team so good?
Well, first we have Breon Butler, who won the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week for the 2nd time this season, and freshman Skylar Fields, who won Big 12 Rookie of the Week. So there's a perfect mix on this team of young talent and veteran leadership. We have sophomores Breon Butler, Jenna Gabriel, and Logan Eggleston, and they are young talent who have worked with these seniors in the past who know exactly what they're doing. But we also have seniors Micaiah White and Claire Hahn with a handful of other girls who are really leading this team. They want to win. This is their last year here. There's just so much depth and so much potential on this team that they are able to compete with anyone in the country at this point.
Sure, and last but not least, I want to say, like I said before, the Longhorns are number 1 in Big 12 rankings, but the NCAA rankings aren't updated yet. Do you think Texas can stay at number 1?
Well, I think for sure. They play Texas Tech on Wednesday. Tech is right now 14-8 with a 2-game losing streak, and although they're playing that game in Lubbock, Texas definitely has the upper hand. After that, they play West Virginia at home, and West Virginia is currently last place in the Big 12, so again, going to be an easy game for the Longhorns. Their next game after that is against Oklahoma in Norman. Right now, OU is 8-0 at home, so that will be their hardest game coming up, but they already beat Oklahoma. They know exactly what they're dealing with. Looking ahead to the rest of their games, their hardest game will be Baylor in Waco, but we just saw them beat this team. They're going to have a little more experience by the time they get there, and I think that with that, they can stay at number 1 for the regular season and then just go off in the postseason.
Great, thanks, Bailey. When we come back, we will look at a Big 12 soccer matchup between Texas and Texas Tech. Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Welcome back to College Press Box. This past Sunday, Texas soccer took on the number 17 Texas Tech Red Raiders in a game that went into overtime. Let's head down to Mike A. Meyer Stadium for the highlights. It was senior day in Austin, and we're starting in the first half. Emma Reagan goes up, and she misses her first shot. Moving straight along, Julia Grosso of Texas is driving, and she gets blocked by the Texas Tech defender. She's moving straight along to the second half. Texas Tech's Kristen Davis is going. She's going. She keeps going. Oh, look at her go. And she shoots, but is blocked by the goalie, Savannah Madden. Charlotte Teeter for Texas Tech scores on a header here. And she's off of the corner kick, bringing the score to 1-1. Here we go into extra time. Tie game. Texas Tech's Macy Schultz scores a big goal that proves to be the game winner and gives Texas Tech the 2-1 victory on senior day in Austin.
Joining us tonight, we have soccer analyst Zach Leff for Texas, having to go against the number 17 Texas Tech and other talented teams suffering from devastating losses. What went wrong for Longhorns this season?
Yeah, so for the Longhorns, Jay, particularly, they started out 3-4. They lost to a Monmouth team that was really, really average, and people were very concerned. However, the Longhorns have recovered in a way. In their last 10 games, they have gone 7-3, and particularly this game though against Texas Tech, tough one for the Longhorns, especially it being senior day for seniors like Sierra Henson and the rest of the senior group. The Longhorns had an advantage early, but they parked the bus and kind of played conservative, ultimately leading that header you saw in the highlights. So for the Longhorns, this was a really, really tough one. They did win earlier though, Friday against Iowa State, the Longhorns, but this one was a super tough one, especially it being senior day. And the Longhorns just need to finish these games stronger. So far, overtime games, 0-3 this season. If they finish strong, maybe that will help them leading into the next part of the season.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Zach. Their future in their season does not seem to be hopeless yet. However, with a 10-7 record, can the Longhorns turn this around in the postseason?
Yeah, of course the Longhorns can turn this around. At this point, watch, they did struggle. However, they do have one more game against Oklahoma coming up in Norman. Then you go to the Big 12 championship, or Big 12 tournament, I'd say, and have a chance of getting the Big 12 championship. This is not the same Longhorn team that we saw last year, a team that was 13-5, a ranked team in the tournament. They won't be ranked if they make the NCAA tournament this year. However, the Longhorns, they need to use the Big 12 tournament as a momentum booster, a big confidence booster. If they were to win 2 to 3 games and then maybe lose in the finals, let's say, to one of these top-ranked teams like Texas Tech, who's 17, or Oklahoma State, who's ahead of the Big 12 right now, we'll see what happens. But for the Longhorns, they definitely have a chance, and Angela Kelly, the coach of the Longhorns, needs to get them together and ready for this run.
Couldn't agree more. Yes, indeed, Zach. Moving forward, Texas should look for more effective opportunities to showcase their strengths through the game, and their opponent's weakness even more effectively to stand a greater chance. With that said, though, Zach, what would be some key areas for improvement moving forward?
Yeah, for the Longhorns, when you look statistically, they're kind of average. They're at the 4th to the 6th mark for every major category. But ultimately, a big area they need to improve in has to be shots on net and corners taken. This was a perfect example. This past game for the Longhorns, they went 12 shots to 4 in favor of Texas Tech on net. If it wasn't for Savannah Madden, it wouldn't be a game. So for the Longhorns, they need to be more opportunistic, and they need to make sure they highlight their players, Sierra Henson, Julia Grasso, Haley Berg. If they're not going to do that, then the Longhorns won't be able to keep up with these teams. They have very few corners, and for the Longhorns, they need to make sure that if they get the ball to those players, they have the ability to put it in the back of the net.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming, Zach, and joining us tonight. When we return, we will talk about the NBC Premier League, Texas Longhorns football head coach Tom Herman, men and women swimming and diving, and much more. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss any of it.
This is Tim Howard, and you're watching College Press Box.
Welcome back to College Press Box. This past weekend, thousands of soccer fans braced the cold weather to attend a Premier League fan fest at Schultz Garden in downtown Austin. With a live taping of Premier League's morning live in-house, the local beer garden was crawling with soccer superstars and die-hard Premier League fans. Jocelyn Maldonado has more from the event.
Well, when you consider what time they have to get up to watch the matches, when you're getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock to watch the matches, that means you're pretty dedicated, and that means how much you love it. You see how many people are here and how much it means to them.
The time is 5 a.m. and we are here at the soccer event, along with thousands of other people.
I am sorry, I'm making this really bad.
NBC's Premier League Mornings live show brought their fan fest to Austin, Texas. The big question in mind was if these soccer fans would emulate the soccer passion deriving from Europe. We decided to immerse ourselves in the festival and find out.
be a soccer center?
Yes, for sure. I think the main thing I see when I do these things is how kind of together the fans are. I don't think in England and a lot of other countries you can get Man City fans, and Chelsea fans, and Arsenal fans. So yes, it's always a good atmosphere when you come to these things, and it is nice and refreshing to see all sets of fans mingling together. I think it's brilliant.
You know, to be a part of the cultural fabric that this game offers, and Austin's been that for a long time. You know, the soccer love in this town didn't just start, and you know, Major League Soccer franchise is just a continued story of the tradition of enjoying the beautiful game here.
This city's beyond ready. This is, you know, this is an incredible turnout. I think that, you know, this is my first time in Austin. I'm looking forward to you know, meeting and greeting all the people, and you know, as an MLS city, this is clearly, you know, going to be one of the best.
We are done for today. NBC Sports Fan Fest 2019. I'm checking out. It was amazing. I'm a soccer fan myself, and I loved it. Austin FC, MLS, we're ready.
The number 2 Texas men's swimming and diving defeated number 17 Kentucky this past Friday, opening their season at the Lee and Joe Jamal Texas Swimming Center in Austin, Texas. The men finished with 12 first-place finishes, winning both the 400 freestyle relay and the 200 mid-lay relay. The team also honored 10 seniors on their annual senior night. Up next, the Longhorns will face Texas A&M in College Station on Friday, November 1st at 6 p.m.
Number 8 Texas women's swimming and diving defeated number 14 Kentucky on Friday night in the Lee and Joe Jamal Texas Swim Center. In the first and last meet at home this season, the Longhorns took down Kentucky 172 to 127, taking home 11 first-place finishes. This was Kelly Pash's first Texas meet, and she finished with 3 wins in the 200 freestyle, 200 butterfly, and the 400 IM. Next up for Texas is a meet against Texas A&M on Friday, November 1st in College Station.
Today, Texas men's tennis player Christian Sisgard and Yu Ito will take on Baylor's Bears Ryan Dickerson and Maedas Soto in for the title of champion of the ITA Tennis Championship. Yesterday, Sisgard and Ito took on Konstantin Francine and Sin La of Baylor, winning the doubles regionals matchup, winning 6-4, 6-4.
This past week, Texas women's tennis played in the HEB Women's Pro Tennis Open at the Texas Tennis Center. The tournament was an International Tennis Federation 15K Pro Circuit event. On the final day of the tournament, Texas tennis senior Bianca Tarati took down her very own sister and teammate Anna Tarati to capture the singles champion title for the tournament. On Saturday, the Tarati twins together were a dynamic duo, being unstoppable as they earned their professional doubles title against the tournament's number 1 seed Fernanda Labrana and Melanie Solange Crywaj.
Tonight, Texas women's basketball team will take on Lubbock's Christian at 7 p.m. at the Frank Irwin Center. This game marks the beginning of the women's basketball season. Senior LaShawn Higgs will return on the court for the first time since November 23rd of last year. Higgs tore her ACL last year against Quinnipiac and received a medical red shirt. This season, the Lady Longhorns will be looking to dethrone the defending national champions, Baylor Lady Bears, and the Big 12.
Now let's take a look at this week in Longhorn sports. On Wednesday, volleyball takes on Texas Tech in Lubbock at 6 p.m. That will be on ESPNU. Soccer plays Oklahoma and Norman at 7 p.m. on Thursday. On Sunday, volleyball plays West Virginia at Gregory Gym at 12 p.m. That will also be aired on ESPNU. There are 2 softball games at home this Sunday, one at noon and one at 2:30. Both of these will be aired on the Longhorn Network.
That is it for us at the Sports News tonight. On behalf of everyone, I would like to take the time to thank all of our viewers for tuning in and watching your best source of sports on news, 40 Acres. Join us next Monday right here at 7 p.m. From all of us in the studio and Master Control, this is Jared Murphy and Jaxie Pidgeon signing out. As always, hook 'em horns and God bless America.